All right, let's tidy up some data. So the first thing I ask you to do is to remove extra spaces. So let's back up. Why are we doing this? I've given you a very small data set. This is on purpose so that you can see the whole thing and kind of assess how the changes are happening. You're obviously going to be working with thousands and thousands of rows of data, which is going to be a lot harder to both work with and clean up and assess. So we're going to keep it simple to start with, but these tools should be really helpful going forward for you. All right. The first thing is removing extra spaces. Why? Because a space is a character, and so space Alice won't be treated the same as Alice. And we want to make sure that if we're trying to count Alice's, that we get all of them. So there's a couple of ways you can go about these. I give you the functions, but if you don't know the function names, you can Google it. How do I remove a space in a cell in Excel? Something like that. So we can use the search and type in trim. This is asking us which data sets do we want, or like which values do we want to trim. Let's just start with the first column here. So it auto-filled A1 through A13, which is what we selected. Hit OK, and it just spilled it into this area down here because I didn't designate the cell. I probably had the cell selected right here. So this is the first thing you need to be aware of when you run these tools. Wherever your processing cell is, that's where it's going to paste the data. So like in last week's exercises, if I were to type in trim into this box or cell and then ran it on the same things, hit enter, it's going to paste it down starting in the cell that I'm processing in. So that's two ways to do it. Now, the second thing to notice, when I click off and then click back on, notice that it's kind of treating this whole thing as a set. You can see the little drop shadow. It's because this is referencing the original data. And so what I want to do here is copy this, but instead of just Control V or pasting, I'm going to right click and I'm going to do a special paste. And apparently I did not copy that correctly. So we're going to go back, Control C, and then I'm going to paste the values, which is like a hard paste. It's making a duplicate of these, so they're not referencing anything anymore. So notice when I click, I don't have that drop shadow around this set. And so then I'm going to take these guys and use my delete key, just clean those up. Okay, so the other thing to be aware of is as we clean this stuff up, you want to be careful about replacing your original data. You might want to work with a copy of your data set in case something goes terribly wrong. You might copy or access your data in one tab and then create a clean data set in a second tab, something like that. All right, that's getting rid of extra spaces. The next thing I ask you to do is to standardize the capitalization of names. So we're going to use the function proper. Again, if you didn't know, Google it. And let's just focus on the name field for now. You can see that we've got capital A Alice and lowercase Alice. Some programs are case sensitive, some are not. We need to clean these up and make sure they're consistent. So let's just work into this cell again. Equals proper open parentheses. And let's select our range of values and then hit enter. And you can see here that it's now capitalized. It's treating it like a proper noun. It's capitalized that third Alice. And because I feel comfortable with this, I'm going to copy these, Control C, right click, and paste the values. So now I have Alice, 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 no spaces ahead of them, and everything's properly capitalized. All right. Fixing missing values or correcting implausible values. We're going to treat these the same. Remember, at the beginning of the instructions, I mentioned that our analysis goal is to compare ages to test scores. And so let's go ahead and sort this table and we'll look for missing or implausible ages. And we could do the same thing with test score, but for right now, let's just work with ages. So I highlight the selection, go up to data and sort. We want to sort by age. Smallest to largest is fine. And what we can see when we look at the largest values is a missing value. We've got 999, which is implausible for age, and 130, which is implausible for age. We don't have any zeros, ones, twos, which we might also assume are implausible. And because this is critical for analysis, I would recommend just deleting these three. But with your data, you're going to have to figure that out. You're going to have to figure which ones. Like right here, George doesn't have a date that he joined. But because that's not what we're analyzing, I feel comfortable leaving that there. I hope that makes sense. All right, so that's these two together. Standardizing the state names. This one is a little bit of a booger. Of course, we want to get everything into the classic 2-character state abbreviation, but we can't just truncate them because like Utah, UT, if we were to truncate it to 2 digits, and there is a function for that, it won't work for Nebraska or Nevada. Nevada would turn into Nebraska if we got rid of the V. So some of these you might have to do manually, and that's true for your own data. This isn't something you're going to encounter very often with specifically state names, but you may encounter it. The other thing to notice here is that we have a space, and so you might need to repeat the space, the trim function on this, but let's go ahead and run upper, open parentheses, whoopsies. All right, Calipound. Yep, and I would say that you probably need to go through and manually correct these. So we've got Nevada. Whoopsie. Now see, that didn't work because I'm working in a reference. So let's go ahead and copy. Right click, paste the values. And now that it's kind of set, we can manually edit these. So NV. Okay, and then I'm going to let you fix the space in California so you can repeat the trim and get some practice doing that. I would probably, when running that trim, I would probably run it on the entire data set, just because it's such a common thing to have happen. Okay, now we've got the date field that we need to deal with. Date isn't something that belongs in our analysis, but this is an important thing to know how to work with. If you haven't ever dealt with formatting cells and dealing with the different properties, this is a really good habit to get into. If you are trying to join, say, an age field with another age field in a different table, they both need to be formatted the same way. If this were for some reason formatted as text and your other age field was formatted as a number, they wouldn't see each other. So checking the formatting of your data is really important. So I'm going to format the cells and kind of force it into the date mode. We can stick with the default here. And it looks like it fixed most of them. We've got January 10, February 11. This one was written out with February. So there's text in this field that isn't being identified. So this is one that I might need to manually fix. And again, you would identify these if you had thousands and thousands of records by sorting. This is going to stick out at the top end or bottom end. Same with this one. It's already been formatted in such a way that reformatting these cells isn't catching this and fixing it. So I would go ahead and manually repair these. So I'm going to fix this one to be, oops, I already forgot what it was, 0210. And this one is 113. All right, and because we already talked about George, I'm just going to ignore this one. Now, I might go back through and just make sure that these are formatted all the same. I might kind of force it to general, and then force it back to date. I like to just make sure. Now, here's a really helpful thing that I use all the time. We can split these out into month, day, and year into their own columns. So I'm going to want to add 3 columns because I want to preserve this one. So I'm going to insert, insert, insert. And let's go ahead and try day, whoops, month, day, year. Okay, and the command for this is called text to column. Please hold while I adjust this. Stop. Okay, text to column. I've got my values highlighted. Text to column is under the data tab in the data tools. All right, we're going to pick a delimiter, and in this case, we want to delimit on the /. So here's a preview of our data. We go to next. We don't want tab, semicolon, comma, space. We want the /. Notice that it just updated our preview where it's splitting those into 3 columns. We don't need tab in there anymore. That looks good. That's what we want. We go to next, and the important thing here with this window is letting us select each column and set the data format for each column. I'm going to leave that alone. It's already formatted as date, so it might make it a little messy on the back end, but that's fine. We can fix it later. The destination is the important thing here. Right now, it's going to start pasting the output of this text to column starting in cell D2. So D2, which is right here. So we're going to overwrite this data, and we don't want to do that. So we want to change this to E2. So that looks right. The $signs just mean it's going to start here and then kind of process through. It's going to delimit and pull these apart, boom, 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 and then repeat. Don't panic. They were formatted as dates, so we're going to go back in, right-click, format cells, and just make them general again. You could make them numbers if you want, but general is one step quicker because then you don't have to tell it 0 decimal places. So January 10th, 2024, that looks good. This is a really handy tool. I highly recommend. You should keep track of what you're doing because you're going to need these functions later, or at least, bookmark this page and make sure that you're able to come back to it. All right, converting the score from text to number. Again, hopefully you understand why by now. We just want to make sure that these are formatted. I'm going to let you work on that. And then standardizing the notes is what you need to work on for your submission. You're going to want to run the trim tool again. You're going to want to get the capitalization consistent, and submit something that's nice and clean in the notes column. Handling duplicate handling duplicate rows is a little bit trickier. It does happen. How can you catch it? You might know some R or some Python and know some good scripts that do it quickly. I would probably sort the table and look for duplicates, but if you're scrolling through thousands and thousands of records, that's tedious and not really realistic. So one thing you can do is under Home, so Home, under Styles, here, under Conditional Formatting, highlight cell rules. We could use equal to or duplicate values. I would recommend messing around with this. This is going to flag cells that contain duplicate values, which is handy. But if you've got a lot of columns, it might be a good shortcut to pay attention to this one, concatenating your input columns. So what that means is we might have an Alice in Utah, we might have an Alice in California. One might be 22, one might be 27. So what we could do is create a helper column that's temporary, and we could concatenate or force Frank, 22, California to be in one column. And that way we're just sorting on that one column, and then looking for duplicate values, because looking for duplicate values over multiple columns doesn't work. So again, I'm going to challenge you to mess around with these things. You are definitely going to have to clean the data that you get when you start working on your final projects. So, yep, just kind of make note of what you're doing. These are pretty common tricks. And what you're going to submit is a really cleaned up screenshot of your table, or go ahead and submit the CSV or XLSX file.